Hey everybody, it's Jeff, Aromatics. Gonna do a video here that I've been wanting to do for a while. So since I've been rolling my cigars and buying cigar tobacco, different types of leaves, I've realized that a lot of things aren't as simple as you would seem. And what I mean when I say that is the different types of leaves, the different type of seeds, and then what we're going to talk about today, the type as far as Maduro and Oscuro, what exactly that means. So a lot of these definitions we just think are clear cut and are the same everywhere, but I've found that at least at my level of buying tobacco, and it seems that even for the commercial cigar makers, that there's not really clear definitions when it comes to different types of seeds and different types of leaves, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So today what we're going to be talking about is what is a Maduro. Another reason I wanted to do this video is the Privada Cigar Club was talking about doing a video, and I kind of wanted to beat them to it just to see if what I think matches up with what they think. Now, I'm not an expert, of course, on any of this stuff, and actually that's why I'm bringing this up, just to bring the topic to light and to maybe get a discussion going, or have people leave things in the comments on what they know about the differences in the tobacco. First of all, let's just define as best we can what we mean when we say Maduro or Oscuro wrapper on a cigar. Normally, what we think of when we think of Maduro and Oscuro is a color. So let me give you an example right here. Hopefully my lighting is good enough. So you would say, that would be the Maduro cigar, and that would be non-Maduro, which is true. This is actually an Oscuro, and this is a Connecticut shade. So that's basically, when you're going in to look at a cigar, that's basically the gist of it. Is the Maduro is usually the darker cigar, and anything else is usually lighter. Now let's start off with saying what a Maduro is not. Now, number one, a Maduro is not a specific type of leaf or a seed variety of leaf is what I mean. So you can have a Connecticut broadleaf Maduro, which is grown in Connecticut. You can also have a Mexican San Andreas Maduro leaf or Oscuro leaf that's grown in San Andreas, Mexico. You can have a Criollo seed Maduro. You can have a Corojo Maduro. You can have a Olor, Dominican. So it's not a specific type. We know for sure that it's not a type of seed, and it is not a type of leaf variety that way. And not only that, but only certain leaves seem to be good at being Maduro and can only get dark enough to be usually considered a Maduro leaf. Now, I've never really seen a Connecticut shade Maduro. I've never seen trying to think of some other leaves. They're just certain leaves that just seem to be too light and just aren't naturally dark enough or cannot be fermented dark enough to be a Maduro. Another thing that I'm going to probably bring up, and this is where it kind of gets a little hazy, is it's not necessarily a color. Now, we'll get into that in a minute. So what exactly does the word Maduro mean, or Oscuro, and what makes that specific leaf darker than another leaf? As far as I know, there's a couple ways. Number one, some leaves are just naturally darker. Let me give you a good example here. Hopefully this will show up. So right here we have a Criollo Jalapa leaf, Seco. So this is a low part or a leaf that's been fermented low on the plant. But this is the same, okay, I don't know if I can, I'll have to show you a picture of it. But this is a Ligero Jalapa, and that is much, much darker than the Seco. You probably can't see right here, but I'll show you a picture of it, and you will see the difference that it makes just by the position on the plant that the leaf is taken from. The Ligero here looks, to me, like it could be an Oscuro or Maduro, whereas the Seco looks like it's just some sort of a natural type of shade type of leaf. So one thing that can contribute to the darkness of the wrapper is just the position on the plant. Now, another way that I know of that can make a leaf darker is by fermenting it longer. And that is why a lot of leaves, or some leaf, just cannot be made into a Maduro or Oscuro, because as they're fermenting the leaf, if it's too thin and fine of a leaf, it'll just disintegrate as it gets dark. It just, as far as I know, it would probably go into mush. Whereas you need more thicker, hardier leaves like Pennsylvania broadleaf or Connecticut broadleaf make really good Maduro leaves because they're really thick and you can ferment them for a long time. So that's two ways that you can make a Maduro leaf. But since Maduro, the word Maduro means ripe, then does that necessarily mean that a Ligero, it's darker than the Seco, but it hasn't been fermented any longer necessarily, has it? So does that mean it's riper? So that definition right there doesn't necessarily work. We've come to one of the conclusions that Maduro means ripe. That's how they defined it, but it does not necessarily mean that it's a ripe leaf. We've also defined that it's a darker leaf, but how dark does it have to be considered a Maduro or Oscuro? Now, Oscuro means dark or black, but are all Oscuro cigars darker than Maduro leaves? So I don't know if we can see from the picture here. I'll try to make a better one, but this cigar right here is wrapped with an Oscuro Corojo, and this one's with a Maduro Ecuadorian Habano. They look almost identical. I'll see if I can post a better picture for you in the corner. But they look almost identical, even though one's a Maduro and one's Oscuro. Here is a better example. So this is the Alec Bradley Magic Toast, and hopefully by the lighting you can see that it is definitely darker. It's an Oscuro, and even though this is a Corojo Oscuro leaf here, that there is definitely a discrepancy in color. So another thing that it seems to be is it doesn't seem that there's not a definite color when it comes, a specifically defined color when it comes to a Maduro or a Oscuro either. It seems to be defined or could be defined by whatever that specific company wants to call a Maduro or a natural. A good example would be Padron. I've had both Maduro and the natural in the 1000 series, and I can barely tell the difference. Sometimes I get confused which one's a Maduro and which one's a natural. And to me, the Maduro Padron doesn't really look that much like as dark a Maduro as I would expect. But to them, maybe it's a higher priming leaf. Maybe they ferment the same particular leaf longer to make it a little bit darker. But to them, they just classified the darker leaf as the Maduro and the lighter leaf as the natural. And that's just their specific definition of what a Maduro and what a natural is. So each company seems to possibly have their own definition, or maybe that company gets their tobacco sourced like I do, and it is just sorted in different ways. So that one is sorted as a Maduro, the other is sorted as natural or Oscuro. So typically, as we've seen, color doesn't necessarily define, like you can, I'll show some examples while I'm discussing this stuff too, but color doesn't necessarily define whether it could be Oscuro or Maduro, as I have seen some cigars that are classified as Oscuro, but actually look less dark than other Maduro leaves that I've. Now, as far as tasting notes, what have I noticed the differences between a natural leaf and a Maduro or Oscuro? So what there's no set standard necessarily, but generally, I find that the Maduro leaves that I've used as wrappers or have smoked on different cigars, Maduro tends to be a little bit spicier, a little bit darker, and sometimes you get some fruit flavors, whereas a natural leaf could be a little more toastier, a little doesn't have the deeper spice notes, although it could still be spicy. And I found that Oscuro leaves can also have some of that spice, but sometimes are more dark fruity, maybe a little bit sweeter, maybe a little bit toasty. So ultimately, in conclusion, what have I come up with? So obviously I've realized, and I'm pretty sure there is no real standard when it comes to Maduro. I think it definitely is different from industry from company to company and farmers to farmers, but ultimately it is a leaf that is been fermented a little bit longer and is darker than other leaves. So it's definitely a darker leaf. Now, what's the difference between a Maduro and a Oscuro? In my opinion, there really is no major difference, but how it could be a color, but not necessarily. But what I've found it could be, or how I would define it, is Maduro and Oscuro could be the same dark color, but a Maduro is a leaf that has actually been fermented longer and as long as possible to bring out the full Maduro flavors. Whereas an Oscuro could just be a leaf that's not necessarily fermented for a longer amount of time than usual, but is just a leaf that is found higher up on the plant that naturally is really dark. And if you've looked at lots of Ligero leaves that are thick, such as broadleaf and even like say Esteli type, that there's lots of black and dark naturally in it, even without extra fermentation, as far as I know. So that's basically what I've come up with. No real answers. Maybe someday I'll actually redo this video because I'm sure that I'll learn even more. And I'm hoping that this video will get out there and people will leave stuff in the comments and maybe make their own videos, or just explaining more about this, because this is just all I know from my experience. And I'm curious to see if there's anything I missed, which I'm sure there is. There's more information out there on the difference between Maduro and Oscuro and what the standard actually is and the difference between Maduros and naturals and Oscuros. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was fun doing it. And I really hope that I get some more information on this for myself to learn some more. So till then, I will see you on my next video. Take care.